Good morning, everyone. Today's class will be an important one, so I hope you're ready to focus. Our topic today is right up there with improper feeding as one of the leading causes of pet mantis death, and something that doesn't always go right for wild mantises either. It is also one of the most fundamental things about mantises, one of the defining traits of their lineage. Understanding molting is key to both keeping your mantis alive and healthy and to having a greater understanding of why arthropods are what they are. We'll first cover what molting is, then a mantis's pre-molt behavior, the process itself, and finally what you can do to maximize your animal's odds of coming out of a molt better than they were before. So what the heck is molting? Mantises are insects in the class Insecta, of course. And insects are arthropods in the phylum, a larger group which contains several classes, Arthropoda. These are animals with segmented bodies and jointed exoskeletons. Much like how insects are just one category of arthropods, arthropods are themselves members of a larger group called the ecdysozoa, those who undergo ecdysis. And ecdysis is just a fancy way, the science way, of saying molting, regularly shedding the exoskeleton to allow the animal within to grow. The term molting is also used to refer to when snakes shed the outer layer of their skin, or when birds drop their feathers. But in insects, it is entirely more involved and profound a change. That's why we have the word ecdysis. An insect must molt in able to grow, and molting allows for regeneration of lost parts, change in color, and more or less drastic reshaping of the body. Molting is why an insect can hatch from their egg looking entirely different than how they will look in their adult form. It's the foundation of metamorphosis, which we're not going to talk about in detail because that's like a butterfly thing. Ew. So, right off the bat, I said that a mantis is covered in an exoskeleton. This might be something you've heard before. If so, well, there might be something new here for you too. Rather than having bones inside like us, insects are supported and protected by their exoskeleton, an outer cuticle made of layers of chitin, a complex carbohydrate which is definitely not pronounced chitin, fibrous proteins, and incorporated minerals and lipids. These different components each contribute to the versatile, powerful composite material that an exoskeleton is. Chitin is flexible, though not elastic, and allows the exoskeleton to bend. The soft parts of mantis at its joints and between its abdomen segments are largely chitin. The crossing protein fiber matrix can be either flexible or stiff, depending on the proteins, and provides a great deal of strength. This strength might be further improved by minerals, even metals, integrated into the hardest parts of some insects' exoskeletons. Some of the lipid molecules waterproof the exoskeleton, but others on the outside are called cuticular hydrocarbons and are the means by which insects chemically recognize each other by touch and smell. In addition to all this, the exoskeleton contains pigments which color the mantis, and in the case of melanin, provide extra structural strength. Other structures on the exoskeleton, sensory pits, hair-like structures called setae, let the mantis sense its environment. The exoskeleton will often be characterized as non-living, and it largely is, but the cuticle is so influenced by the epidermal body wall cells beneath it, it's able to repair itself, increase in thickness, and transport signals. It's a near seamless extension of the living animal inside it. I say near seamless because there's a very important time when there's a seam. That exoskeleton might be pretty great, but it still does need to come off for the animal to get bigger. The process is regulated by hormones, most famously one called juvenile hormone, which is produced in large amounts when an insect is young and gradually declines over its age, resulting in more and more maturity-focused changes with each molt. Another set of hormones, especially ecdysone, controls the timing of each molt and is influenced by the insect's metabolic status. In simple terms, how many nutrients it is gathered and processed. Each of these nutrient gathering periods is called an instar. That's the time between molts. A mantis who has just hatched from its egg and never molted is in its first instar. A mantis who has molted twice is a third instar, and so on. You get it. During each instar, the animal is eating, storing energy, and building up new body tissues under the surface of the current exoskeleton. This is visible in later mantis instars as a swelling of the thorax, and especially the wing buds. And when you have observed mantises closely, you'll be able to tell when a mid-sized nymph is getting ready to molt, just from the slight expansion and tautness of the region above its middle legs. When feeding and temperature are good, each instar takes a fairly predictable amount of time, which varies between species. Really, most everything about a mantis takes longer as it gets older, including the period of fasting before molting. A first instar might eat in the same day that it molts, while later instars will go 3 or more days without eating beforehand. When the hormonal cascade begins and molting is imminent, a mantis will search for a secure perch, like textured sticks or a mesh lid, to molt from. In almost all mantises, this must be upside down, with enough open space below for up to twice the mantis's current body length to hang straight down. This is why a mantis enclosure must be tall, and why excessive decor can be dangerous. That open space beneath the molting perch is important. Although to us, it's obvious where a mantis should choose to molt. It's not always obvious to them. If you want to eliminate any chance of your mantis choosing a potentially fatal place to molt, remove low horizontal branches and other such surfaces that prevent your beloved little idiot from making a bad mistake. A special few species use different perches and stances. Extremely ground-adapted mantises like Eremiaphila can molt horizontally while standing on a flat surface like desert sand. And the genus Coratodus prefers to molt from broad, sturdy leaves, often standing upright on the top of a leaf until molting is very close, at which point it hangs over from the edge and molts normally. Any mantis who fails to find a suitable perch will either try to molt from a risky one or put it off for so long that it becomes unable to molt at all and will certainly die. After settling and wrapping the claws of its 4 walking legs around a grippable perch, the pre-molt mantis will hang in a characteristic position. Observe here. The body hangs semi-loosely with the legs more extended than at rest. The abdomen curls vertically in a smooth arc. The forelegs are held partly extended. The mantis refuses food, frantically slapping away other insects and tongs. And the mantis holds this position for a prolonged time, only pulling back into a more normal stance if directly disturbed. During this period, the mantis should not be disturbed. Stress at this time can increase the likelihood for a failed molt. However, if absolutely necessary, it can be moved, either by directly lifting the perch to a better position or by coaxing the mantis to walk there on its own. There is a point in the pre-molt period, though, where the mantis becomes unable to move anymore, as its exoskeleton loosens and detaches from its muscles. From that point on, the animal can do nothing except try to finish the molt, and it's completely vulnerable to even usually harmless animals like roaches. Although a mantis will try to molt as quickly as possible, uneaten prey should be removed from its enclosure if it might be molting soon. To begin the process, the mantis pumps a cocktail of chemicals from its epidermis into the lower layers of the exoskeleton. This molting fluid dissolves the bonds between the epidermis and the exoskeleton, and is the reason why you'll see me frequently state how important a mantis's internal hydration is to molting. A lot of people will cite humidity as being an important factor in a successful molt, and although humidity reduces the rate a mantis dehydrates, the surrounding air has little impact on whether or not it can finish a molt. It's all about the water that the animal has stored from food and drink in the days leading up to the process. Too little water inside equals too little molting fluid and too slow cellular processes. And the result is a mantis who can't fully extract parts of itself, often the fore or hind legs, from its exoskeleton. So when your mantis is nearing the expected time for its species and instar, or showing the signs of pre-molt that we outlined earlier, make sure that you're misting an appropriate amount and feeding well-hydrated food. If you're worried, you can even offer water from your fingertips directly to its mouth. A mantis's exoskeleton first splits along its back as a vertical line on the thorax. Although its old exoskeleton is no longer tied to its muscles, the new exoskeleton is soft and flexible, but able to be wiggled and pushed to ease the whole animal out. Immediately, the new cuticle begins the gradual process of stiffening and hardening, so the molt needs to progress smoothly and quickly. It breathes in air to expand its thorax and abdomen, breaking the cuticle further up and down the back. The head and forelegs start to slide out simultaneously, and both should be fully free by the time the middle legs are wiggled out. When the mantis is finished molting, it hangs by only the end of its abdomen until the cuticle is dry and rigid enough for it to grab onto the shed skin or surrounding surfaces. If the mantis is mature, its wings expand from their wrinkled state and hang loosely until they can be safely folded over the abdomen. The entire molt may take just a couple of minutes for a small mantis, or over an hour for an adult with wing inflation included. After molting, a mantis is still weak and easily stressed. It should not be handled outside of emergency situations for a few hours in the case of nymphs or over a day for very large adults. Feeding after the molt is important, as the mantis probably has been going without food for several days beforehand, but it should still be done carefully. Although mantises can eat in the same day that they molt, many of them will refuse to catch prey or even hold heavy food that's given to them with tongs. For maximum safety, avoid feeding a freshly molted nymph or small species adult until at least 1 day after molting, or 2 or 3 days for a large adult. In summary, here's how you can make as many of your mantis's molts go as optimally as possible. Provide a variety of suitable perches, like thin branches and mesh ceilings, in a container at least 3 times as tall as your mantis is long. Keep your mantis hydrated through water droplets from misting and from frequent feeding of healthy prey. Remove prey from a mantis's enclosure if they're going to molt soon, especially prey like roaches, grasshoppers, or crickets, which can eat a molting mantis. Give big, heavy, subadult mantises vertical and angled branches they can grab onto after molting. Some of these species risk falling if they only have their own molt to grab onto after they're finished, and may also inflate their wings better when they have multiple perching options. Be careful and aware not to disturb your mantis while they're molting, as any fall or delay can be dangerous. Molting is one of the most fascinating aspects of keeping a mantis, but no matter how long you've been keeping, it can still be dreadfully tense. It's our goal at Mantis University that you are prepared to give your mantis what it needs to molt successfully, and have a greater appreciation of the amazing process they'll go through over and over again.